there was some serious upsets over at Salt Lake City. We gotta talk about it. Yo, what's up, guys? This is Why Not Be Reckless, aka Why Not Be Casting. I'm one of the HCS commentators, and we have another HCS Weekly Report where today we're going to be going over everything that happened during Salt Lake City, from pool play to bracket play, even going over who won the entire tournament. So why don't we get right into it with Pool A. In Pool A, you had FaZe, Gamers First, Complexity Gaming, and Mind Freak. Of course, you have FaZe looking to go in for that three-peat in Frosty, Renegade, Royal 2, and Snakebite. Gamers First coming out hot after that qualifier. Precision, Suspector, and Swish, the team that actually won the qualifier. Then you have Complexity coming in with a big top 8 finish at Arlington, guaranteeing them a spot in pool play here at SLC. Gilkey, Carmea, King, Nick, and Tusk. And then eventually you had Mind Freak coming in all the way from down on the mat. And that was Benji, Pips, Plasma, and Scoobmeister coming in for that Mind Freak roster. Yeah, like I said, FaZe going in for the three-peat. Gamers First, fresh off of that qualifier. Complexity did end up losing out in Suppressed, but Carmea came in and he was flying, and that ended up leading to the results of FaZe 3-1 in Complexity. No real surprise there. Same with G1 with the 3-0 over Mind Freak. FaZe with the 3-1 over G1, and I believe G1 actually took game 1 of that series, but there was a lot of technical difficulties within that series, I heard, which ended up lasting quite a bit. I remember I was casting with Walshy, and we took a sneak peek into the series where G1 were up 1-0, and they were going into the Slayer, and by the way, G1 were still looking good in that Slayer, but eventually FaZe clearly taking that game, and then the game after the finish, and what should probably be a 3-1 here. Complexity with the 3 over Mind Freak, again, no surprise. FaZe with the 3-0 over Mind Freak. G1 with the 3-0 over Complexity, who were the higher seed going into this tournament. To me, was a little bit of a surprise there. I think G1 is obviously a phenomenal team. I love the fact that they bring back Suspector onto that roster, and I love all the guys on that roster, and I'm a big fan of them. However, I will say Complexity not only good enough to potentially win in this matchup, but definitely good enough not to get swept. A 3-0 in favor of G1 is not what we want to see Complexity at in this stage of their where they're at. You know, like I said, top 8 over at Arlington, and I know for a fact they could replicate that here in Salt Lake City. Hopefully, starting off in the elimination bracket didn't exactly kill their tournament hopes for Complexity. Then we're going to go into Pool B. Space Station Gaming, Bound, Eco, Penguin, and Stellar. Native Gaming Red, Manny, Soul Snipe, Taulik, and Suppressed, who we just talked about, was last seen on Complexity Gaming, getting stolen onto that Native Gaming Red roster. Then you have Bittersweet again, which signed that Carpe Noctem roster of Cherished, Diagram, King J, and Piggy, formerly known as Status Quo, I believe, back at Arlington, and a few tournaments before then was Bittersweet. And then you have Team Cruelty. I believe Team Cruelty was the Latin American team, No Org, that signed them. Atso, Bullet, Lure, and Sepstars was that Team Cruelty roster. But let's go into the actual matchups themselves. Space Station Gaming playing in front of their home crowd, able to get the 3-0 over Team Cruelty. Also, Native Red 3-1 over Bittersweet. I keep talking about this Bittersweet roster and how they continue to get better and better. They practice hard, and I promise it shows whenever they come into tournament play, even on land. Able to take a game off of Native Gaming Red, but still Native Red, especially with Suppressed, coming out hot with the 3-1. SSG with the 3-1 over Bittersweet. And to be honest, not many teams actually took games off of Space Station Gaming, period, throughout this tournament, especially in pool play. Native Gaming and Bittersweet, the only ones to take one game off of Space Station. Native Gaming with the 3 over Team Cruelty, SSG with the 3-1 over Native Gaming Red, and then Bittersweet with the 3-0 over Team Cruelty. And I would probably say this wasn't too much of a surprise over in Pool B. It's kind of exactly what you expected, even though I think Bittersweet did have a fighting chance against Native Gaming. Native Gaming still at one point was a top 4 team in the league, and it's really starting to look like that once again. Next up, Pool C. And you got Quadrant with the big 3rd place finish at Arlington, securing their spot in pool play. The only team outside of North America to be within that top 8 and able to do just that. Quadrant Legend, Chick, SLG, and Sika. Next up, you have Native Gaming What, and that's Collect, McWin, tapping buttons, and no longer running with barcode being dropped due to visa issues, same as Druk for Native Gaming Red. They eventually bring Bohm, who was subbing in for Native Gaming Red, onto Native White, and they did end up coming out 2nd place in the pool. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Cloud9, fresh off of that miracle run at Arlington, all the way from the open bracket into the top 6, also was able to secure their spot in pool play. The Nemesis, Grammy, Triton, and the newly acquired Septify, who added a lot of firepower to this team. And then Team Impact coming in to round us off. And I believe Team Impact was The Last Dance, I want to say. They rebranded, which was Kimbo, Mose, Flux, and Respectful coming in for Team Impact. Talk about the actual matchups themselves now, but you got 2 teams coming out from Europe. Quadrant, again, fresh off of the 3rd place finish at Arlington. Wonder if they can keep that same energy here in SLC. And also same thing for Cloud9, a top 6 finish out of the open bracket. A really tough run for Cloud9. And to start things off, Cloud9 eventually getting swept by Quadrant, but so do many teams, let's be honest. Not many teams will be able to take games off of Quadrant. They are that damn good. Native Gaming White able to 3-1 Team Impact. Quadrant 3-1 over Native White. Their sole loss here in pool play was handed to them by Native White. Cloud9 with the 3-1 over Team Impact. Big win for Cloud9 there. Quadrant with the 3 over Team Impact. But then eventually it was Native White coming out with the 3-0 against Cloud9. So I'll be honest with you, that's something that we didn't want to see for Cloud9. Again, fresh off of top 6 was huge for them. I know for a fact that they belong in the conversation with the Native Whites, the Complexities, the Bittersweets, the Native Reds. I know they belong within that conversation, but for that, 2nd tier teams like Complexity, Bittersweet, and Cloud9, it's not going to be easy for them. It's going to be a bit of a journey to stay within this conversation, to stay out of that open bracket, which we know they want to do each and every tournament. And I know that all 3 of these teams have it in them. It's just about getting into that conversation and staying there, just continuing to play together, continuing to improve together, and take that leap together. But we know how good Cloud9, Complexity, and Bittersweet can all be. So gonna be rooting for all 3 of these teams to continue to find success tournament after tournament. But yeah, Pool D coming in, and the D clearly stands for death, because Pool D was definitely that pool of death, considering you have Sentinels, Boo Boo Doo, Falcated, Lethal, and Spartan, a team coming fresh off of that top 4 finish, but it was still a very new squad, and sometimes squads go through a little bit of a honeymoon phase. We were wondering if Sentinels were going to be one of those teams that were considered going through that honeymoon, or are they the real deals? Questions definitely got answered during this tournament. Meanwhile, Optic Gaming coming in with the tried and true APG, Formal, Lucid, and Trippy. Lots of questions surrounding them as well. Optic obviously haven't looked like the same dominant Optic that we saw early this year, or even late last year, as they went for the repeat. I think it was Orlando, Worlds, and then taking Charlotte as well. Did Optic Gaming. Shopify Rebellion, more questions. Even though this was the pool of death, it was also kind of the pool of questions, because Shopify Rebellion waiting for them to take that next step within their competitive careers together cycle. Mental Rain and Ryan, and then Navi coming in with Jimbo, Mighties, Snipe Drone, and bringing in Glory, who brings a lot of firepower, comes in from that free-for-all world, and was one of the young stars over in Europe, taken over by this Navi roster, looking to compete with not only the likes of Quadrants within their own region, but also looking to compete when they come overseas here in North America as well. Pool D, that pool of death, starting right off the rip with Sentinels coming off with the 3-1 over Shopify Rebellion. For a very long time, I had Shopify Rebellion and Sentinels in the same exact tier. Like I literally compared them tournament after tournament and would largely judge them the exact same way I did with Shopify Rebellion and Sentinels. But now I feel like Sentinels have really taken a step forward, and we'll talk about them a little bit more later on, but they've really taken a step forward and coming in as top dogs and really trying to break into the top 4 to maybe turn that big 3 that we had for a while into a big 4, or maybe take somebody's spot within that big 3. Optic with the 3-0 over Navi, Sentinels 3-0 over Navi as well. Optic 3 over Shopify Rebellion. Would love to see Shopify Rebellion pull off a win or 2 here. Even the same with Sentinels, but eventually it was Sentinels that come off with the 3-2 win against Optic Gaming. The same Optic Gaming that are your world champions, taken to Game 5 by Sentinels and also beaten in Game 5 by Sentinels. Huge for them to start off their tournament and to answer those questions, whether they were the real deal or not. Beating out Optic, by the way, a very angry Optic, and coming out number 1 in the pool of death, definitely put a lot of people on notice of how good Sentinels are. Shopify Rebellion were able to 3-1 Navi as well to take that 3rd seed, and what ended up happening was 2 seeds of each pool ended up over toward the winner's bracket. Meanwhile, 3rd place in each pool ended up in the elimination bracket, and the 4th place teams such as Mind Freak Team, Cruelty Impact Team, and Natus, Navi. I'm not even sure. Natus Vincia? Is that how you say? I feel like I've never actually said their full name before, but all 4 end up getting eliminated from pool play. Didn't see them win to championship bracket. When we get to championship bracket, FaZe coming out quick with the 3-0 over Native Red. Big win coming out of them. Native Red really wanted to show that they belong within the top 4 of teams. Ended up running into FaZe, going for that 3-peat. Did Native Red at the elimination bracket. Sentinels with a 3-1 over Native White. Big win coming out of Sentinels as they were looking to assert themselves as top 4 in the league. Same as Native Red, but this time it was Sentinels that move forward. Quadrant running into Optic, the same team they ended up knocking out to one of their lowest places, I'm sorry, if not the lowest place on land so far this year. Optic getting their revenge with the 3-1 over Quadrant. Space Station Gaming 3-0 over the trying to prove themselves G1. Big win for SSG. Don't want to say I'm really surprised that Optic came out with the win over Quadrant, but this was definitely the featured matchup when it came to the winners bracket. And Sentinels with the 3-1 over Native White was good, but again, I wouldn't say it upset. I would say the most exciting matchup was definitely Optic 3-1 over Quadrant, which even then I wouldn't exactly consider that an upset. Sentinels 3-0 over FaZe. Sentinels 3-0 sweep over FaZe. And if you had any questions whether Sentinels were the real deal coming into this tournament, especially after their run at Arlington, it was answered right here. Brother, it was answered right here. Oh my gosh, Lethal getting his revenge on his former team that dropped them to bring in Renegade. Sentinels with, by the way, only their 2nd tournament together. You would imagine not as much practice as they really wanted to when going into the tail end of this season, still able to 3-0 the back-to-back LAN champions. Did Sentinels big. I obviously, you know, I love the FaZe boys, but man, was I proud. Space Station Gaming 3-2 over Optic Gaming. And I mean, you already seen one major upset. Why not throw a little mini upset in there? Because it was Space Station Gaming that was taken to Game 5 by Optic Gaming. Optic really trying to get back into championship form once again. We're upset that ultimately they came out as the second seed going into championship bracket. They were looking good, but SSG were just looking better. SSG coming out with a 3-2 win over Optic, securing their spot in the winners bracket finals, where eventually Space Station Gaming would 3-1 Sentinels, sending them down to the elimination bracket. But either way, once you get down to the winners bracket finals, you are guaranteed a top 3 finish no matter what happens at that point. Lots of great stuff over to elimination bracket. You know, you could pause here if you want to really take a look at it. We're gonna probably come in right over here with Native Red with the 3-0 over Complexity. Once again, Complexity was able to beat out Native White, which is big for them. Weren't able to get the same thing against the Native Red team, where Complexity ended up getting swept by Native Red. Talked about Complexity being the real deal. Happy that they've made it up into this tournament, top 8 at Arlington. A nice run here at Salt Lake City. Want to see them continue to put in the work and see them continue to improve. As Squadron also 3-0 over Shopify Rebellion. Again, want to see Shopify Rebellion get a win in a lot of these series. We know how good, we know what their ceiling can be, but their floor might be a little bit lower than that. And I'm going to chalk this up to being stylistically just, you know, maybe a bad run for Shopify Rebellion and maybe even a bad layout for them. But eventually, we got to see Shopify Rebellion start to be competitive with every single one of these teams, because they are the real deal and they need to start putting themselves back within that conversation. Native Red taking Optic Gaming to a Game 5, and man, we almost saw another upset go Native Red's way. They were able to beat out Optic Gaming in tournament play not too long ago, but not this time. Optic come out with the 3-2 finish over Native Red. And after the matchup with Native Red, Soul Snipe tweeting out, "I've been competing for 5 years, and that was the most heartbreaking moment in my competitive career. I'm gutted. Gave up an 11 kill lead for no reason. GG's Optic. Finished top 6 at Salt Lake City," did Soul Snipe. And I feel like that's one way to look at it. And I said this on the analyst desk when I was over at SLC as well. It's one way to look at it, but I think another way to look at it is they're just coming in, bringing in Suppressed. This is their first tournament on land that Suppressed is coming in, and they're still looking good. You're still taking Optic to a Game 5, which is an amazing team who can be competitive with anybody in the league. They're one of the big 3 for a reason. You finished on top 6 your first time implementing Suppressed into the lineup. You're showing that you still could be a top 4 team. Top 6 is not bad whatsoever. This is not a bad place. And so I saw this and I just like, I felt so bad, because this is one way to look at it. But I think another way to look at it is, hey, you know what? We're still looking good. We can still improve from here. And then who knows, come our second tournament together, come our third tournament together, they're going to look better and better, especially with a little bit more practice with Native Red. Congratulations, Native Red, for making it to top 6. Optic Gaming move forward. FaZe 3-1 over Quadrant. A lot of people had Quadrant possibly winning out this matchup, especially with how good they looked over in pool play, only dropping 1 game. But Quadrant ended up getting knocked out in top 6. Still not a bad tournament. I feel like Native Red and Quadrant are kind of in similar boats, where top 6. That is nothing to be upset about. No matter what you did in the tournament before, tournament after, I think top 6 is still very good for both Quadrant and Red. FaZe with the 3-2 win in Game 5 over Optic Gaming. Yes, Optic Gaming did take FaZe to a Game 5. Yes, it looked possible that they were going to pull off the upset, but let's not forget that FaZe were coming in, trying to come out for that back-to-back-to-back LAN champions, pull off the 3P, and eventually FaZe would not be denied making it to the losers bracket finals, but they would be denied going into that grand finals, because Sentinels once again Not only the Sentinels come out with the 3-0 in the winners bracket to knock FaZe down to elimination bracket to begin with, but they put that finishing blow onto them to take them out of the tournament. Sentinels beating FaZe twice in bracket play, knocking them out of the tournament and securing their spot in the grand finals. Did Sentinels, the same team that people questioned whether they were going to be too slow for the meta. The same team that people questioned whether they were going to get top 4 again at this tournament after Quadrant beat them out at Arlington, ended up in the grand finals, where eventually they would get swept by Space Station Gaming, who were not only looking so clean throughout the event, but on top of that, had that hometown crowd behind them. And if you didn't watch any of these games, especially not in person, if you were there in person, you understood how loud this crowd was, how motivated this crowd was, how on fire Salt Lake City was behind Space Station Gaming. They had Space Station Gaming playing on a pedestal. Did that crowd, and I'll be honest, I don't know if there was any team that could have beat them. Not the FaZe that we saw in Arlington Grand Finals, not the Optic that we saw pull off the 3-peat, including beating at Wolves. Not Final Boss themselves could have beat SSG with the entire the entire city of Salt Lake City behind them, the entire state of Utah behind them. There was nobody beating out the Space Station Game roster, coming out with that 4-0 sweep, the Space Station Game. And they're coming in with their first tournament this year, bound a first-time champion in Halo is bound on LAN. And now the question becomes, will this be the last tournament Space Station Gaming? Only 2 tournaments left in Fort Worth and Worlds. Can Space Station run back-to-back? Can they pull off a 3-peat over toward the tail end of the season? Will Space Station win another tournament this year? That's going to be the question of the day. Let me know in the comments down below. And also like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Interact with the video so this way it gets pushed out to more people. And more people watching means that I get rich on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Peace.